Hello friends, now that we are in the middle of the semester, we are now going to start uh, another subject, Indian economy. While this subject has been mentioned as Indian economics, the correct terminology should be Indian economy. So please make a note of this. And basically in this particular subject, we'll be discussing about the Indian economy and its distinctive features. So let us start off. Before starting off, we need to know basically what economy is all about. You have been studying about economy in various subjects. You have studied macroeconomics and microeconomics also. And now we have to basically, deal with the various characteristics, attributes, unique features of Indian economy, we need to know first what economy is. Now basically a very simple kind of a definition can be system of making and trading things of value. So this is a system of making and trading things of value. Now what do we mean by this? For example, let's say that you consume chocolates on a regular basis. Now there is somebody, some particular organization, or maybe a number of organizations making the chocolates, producing the chocolates. And then there would be some entities which will only trade the chocolates. What do we mean by this? They will probably buy the chocolates from the manufacturing organization, manufacturing firm, and then they will sell it to maybe the end customer or maybe to some other entity. Now this is what we mean by trading. Let us talk about your neighborhood kirana wala, the retail store that you have in your neighborhood. What does he do? He does not make any of the products. You go there, suppose you want to buy, let's say, a sachet of shampoo or soap or maybe a toothpaste. You go and purchase it from there. That neighborhood kirana wala is not engaged in any kind of manufacturing activity. He is not producing these products. He is only trading them, which means he is buying it from some entities and then he is probably selling it to you. So he is only engaged in trading. Likewise, the wholesaler, the thok vikreta, as we call it in Hindi, what does he do? The wholesaler basically purchases the products in bulk from some other entity and then he sells it to the retailer so that the retailer can sell it further to the end customers. Now the wholesaler is basically also involved in trading of the things, trading of the various items. So I hope now you understand the meaning of making and trading. So while Parle G is basically engaged in making the products, you know that Parle has a production unit in Rudhpur, Uttarakhand also, and they've got various production units including in Maharashtra. So what do they do there? They basically make products there. And then through a network of distributors and wholesalers and retailers, they actually make the product reach you. So all those entities which are not engaged in the production of Parle products, but they are only engaged in bringing the product to you, they are trading entities. So an economy will consist of both those who make and those who trade. Now let us talk about value. Now this value is in the context of the customer, the person who is actually consuming the items. So naturally only those things will be made and only those things will be traded which a consumer considers valuable, for which he expresses some demand. So let us talk about the sewing machines. Earlier we used to have sewing machines in your homes, in your houses. Now we do not have sewing machines in our houses, generally because people do not value it anymore, or very few people, they attach any value to owning a sewing machine. And that is why companies which used to make sewing machines, they've stopped producing sewing machines, and now they have moved over to some other products. While those who used to engage in trade, naturally, when there is nothing left, nothing being produced, if no sewing machine is being produced, because there is no customer who attaches value to the sewing machines, so naturally there would be nothing to trade. And that is why these trading firms, trading entities have also stopped engaging in trade of or buying or selling of sewing machines. Now, a relatively more comprehensive definition is an area of production, distribution and trade, as well as consumption of goods and services by different agents. So economy is an area where you find these three activities. We have discussed production, trade, distribution. If you look at the first definition, when we were talking about making things, basically it is referring to nothing but production. If we were talking about trading, it was basically referring to nothing but distribution and trade. And when we mentioned value there, value from the context, from the point of view of a customer, then we were basically talking about the consumption point. So economy is an area wherein you see production going on. The items which are produced, they have to be distributed to the consumption centers, wherein consumers are there, which will include basically trading of these items. Trading means buying of these items from the production entity and then selling it to the consumption entity. So all these things, all these functions would be part of the economy. Again, production, distribution and trade and consumption will be taking place both in goods as well as in services. I hope you know the difference between goods and services. For example, goods, a soap that you are purchasing or maybe toothpaste or toothbrushes that you purchase, they are all goods. While services, they are less tangible. They are intangible in fact in nature. You cannot see them live in front of you. You can only experience them. For example, if you are going to a doctor because you have got a stomach ache, so he listens to your problem and then he advises you to do a particular exercise, and he also advises you not to have spicy food. Now this is a service being rendered by the doctor. Naturally you cannot see the service coming, you can only experience it. So services are more intangible in nature. When you are going through this particular video session and when you are listening to me, basically I am rendering this service to you. I am educating you. You cannot see this, you cannot actually go and touch this kind of service, but you can always experience it. Is this okay? So that is the difference between goods and services. And in fact, I think that we have discussed the difference in marketing management also. You know that services are intangible. You know that services also cannot be stored. For example, if you want to have ice cream in the month of May, the company can produce it in the month of April and then they will store it in a cold storage unit for the next 1 month till May arrives, and then in May they can sell it to you or they can distribute the product to the end customers. On the other hand, if you want a haircut in May, the barber cannot do the haircut right in April and then maybe store something for the next 1 month and then tell you in May that okay boss, this is your haircut. You cannot do that. You need to be present at the point of delivery of the service. So which means when the haircut is being done, the customer has to be there and the service provider, the barber, has to be there, because the barber cannot store these services for you to consume in future. He cannot produce his hair cutting service in month of April so that you can consume it in the month of May. So these are the major differences between goods and services. So production, distribution, trade and consumption will take place in both goods as well as in services. Now, by different agents, what do we mean by different agents? The entities which might be involved in production, distribution, trade and consumption, they are called the agents. Let us have a look. These are also called economic agents. These will include individuals like us, individuals, or at times individual households. So many a times, rather than saying just individuals, we talk in terms of the households. And in India, a household is considered to consist of 5 individuals on an average. So one economic agent is individual, which is basically primarily engaged in consumption. Firms, organizations, manufacturing units like I said, Parle, Agro Private Limited, or let's say Britannia Industries, or let's say Maruti Suzuki, they are all firms which are basically engaged in production. Then there are trading firms also. For example, Amazon is a trading firm which by and large does not do its own production, rather it purchases it in fact trades the goods in the sense that it takes the good from those who are producing them, and then it basically delivers these goods to your doorsteps, to the end customers. So they are basically engaged in trading. So they are also a category of firms, and they are called trading firms. Amazon.com or Flipkart, or let's say Snapdeal. So these are all firms. And governments. Now governments can be both producer as well as consumers. So government can be consuming the various goods and services produced by the firms also, while they can also be producing. For example, if you talk about the water supply in your house, don't you think it is the government that is producing this service? It is the government that is producing this service. If you go to the district hospital, government district hospital, then naturally it is the government which is providing this service. So it is the government which is engaged in producing or distributing. If you talk about this particular lecture, I am being paid by the government to deliver this lecture. So basically this lecture is being produced and distributed by the government. But then governments are also consumers of goods and services. For example, only recently Government of India purchased some weapon systems from different countries. What does this mean? This means that the government is also consuming these services. So all these economic agents may be engaged in production as well as consumption, or maybe trade of the goods and services. Now let us talk about the circular flow of money in the economy. Now you know already, we have discussed this in macroeconomics also. So just to make things clearer to you, what happens in an economy, how the money flows in an economy. And this flow has been found to be circular. How? Let us see. You can see the household sector at the top. Many times we call it the consumption center also. Just a little while ago I mentioned that individuals are generally considered to be the consumption center. Though they might be engaged in various different, for example, a shopkeeper might be engaged in trading activity also. But by and large, individuals and households are considered to be consumption center. Okay. Now you can have a look at the top part, the household sector or the individual sector, and the square shape at the bottom, producing sector or the production center. Now by production center we mean those centers wherein you are producing some goods and services, while the household sector can be said to be the consumption center also, and here basically consumption of these goods and services is taking place. Now how does the money move between these two sectors? Now have a look at the right side of the picture. Now you'll find here that the household sector, there is a arrow which is emerging from the household sector, and it is moving in the direction of producing sector. So household sector does what? Household sector consumes goods and spends on purchase of these goods, and when the household sector purchases these goods, the money will flow from the household sector to the production sector. Is this okay? On the other hand, the production center will have to produce these goods so that these goods can be sold further to the household sector. But to be able to produce these goods, the production center requires land or maybe a rented space wherein the production can take place. Then they also require workers who can do the manual work, and naturally these workers will have to be paid something. They might require credit, udhar, against which they will have to pay some interest. So the production center will be producing things using these various factors of production, including land, labor, capital, machinery and all. Now for all these factors of production which have been used by the production sector, the production sector will have to remunerate the entity which is providing them these factors. So if a worker is providing the production center his labor, he will have to be remunerated, and this remuneration will be called factor payment, and here this factor payment will be his wages or the salary. Again, if there is some entity which has provided the production center with a piece of land, or let's say a building wherein the production can take place, the production sector will have to remunerate that entity, and this remuneration again will be called factors payment, and this will take the shape of rent. If, for example, some entity has provided the production center some credit so that the production activities can be carried out, the money can be spent in producing various items and purchasing raw materials. So if the credit has been provided to the production sector, then naturally this again will have to be remunerated, and this will take form of interest that the production sector will pay. Is this okay? So basically, if you look at the left part of the screen, you will find out that the factor payments are emerging from the production sector, and they are basically getting directed to the household sector. Now what does this mean? This means, let's take an example. Suppose you are working with, let's say, Parle, and since you are working with Parle as assistant manager in their production department, so naturally you are going to get paid. You are basically part of the household sector, consumption center, and you are going to be paid for your work, for the managerial expertise that you provide to Parle, and they will be providing you some salary, which will be, have a look at the left part of your screen, which will basically factor payment by Parle to you, who is basically a worker of Parle. So Parle is going to pay to this factor of production. The labor provided you by you is the factor of production, and you are going to get paid wages and salaries in the lieu, in return of your labor. Now once you have got your salary, what will you do? You will naturally probably would want to purchase, let's say, piece of cloth, or let's say you want to go to the market and purchase shirts for yourself. You are going to the market to purchase, let's say, bread and butter. So naturally, when you are going to do this, or let's say you go to the market and purchase biscuits, when you do this, basically the money that you pay, you consume biscuits, and the expenditure on these biscuits will basically be the earning for the production center, that is for the barley. Now this is the meaning of the circular flow of money in the economy. This is how money flows in a circular fashion in the economy, which means the money does not go outside the economy. It remains within the economy and it keeps moving from one entity to the other. This is a very simplistic diagram. There are so many other entities involved. For example, we have seen that there can be other entities also. For example, governments is one such entity. Government is one such entity. But then this is a very simplistic diagram to just make you understand how money flows in an economy and how this flow is circular in nature. So now that you have understood the circular flow of money in the economy, in the next video session we'll be talking in very brief about the different economic systems that we have, and what are the distinguishing features of these different economic systems. Thank you very much.